You're a very well-known name and face in the Regina area, not as much across the country. How do you plan to make your name more well-known as you keep an eye to the next federal election?
Well, as you mentioned, being Speaker of the House of Commons in the previous Parliament maybe didn't give me the exact same platform that others may have had to be known on a national level. So the job really starts now. I was able to travel quite a bit throughout the leadership campaign, got to every province, and spoke to many people in many different communities. Now I'll be doing that as a leader of the party instead of running for the leadership, so speaking to more people than just members of the Conservative Party. And I've already started. I spent 10 days on the road in Atlantic Canada, was at Stampede in Calgary. I'm going to Quebec and then British Columbia in the next couple of weeks. So I think a big part of it is just getting everywhere as much as I can.
What are you hearing is most important to Conservatives right now?
Well, right now there's still a lot of anger over the Omar Khadr decision, and that's something that I think is the same across the country, regardless of what city people may be in or what demographic they may belong to. There's a real anger at the fact that the Liberals have chosen to compensate Omar Khadr over and above the compensation that he already received. And I know locally I'm hearing a lot about that Ralph Goodale's decision to sign the apology and to ignore the fact that they didn't have to do this. And some of the allegations that this was because of a court order, because the Supreme Court had ruled something, people know that's not true. There was nothing forcing the Liberal government to do this, and for Ralph Goodale and Justin Trudeau to decide to spend taxpayers' money over and above the fact that Omar Khadr was already compensated by coming back, being allowed to come back to Canada, is frustrating a lot of people. The deficits are causing a lot of anxiety. The Bank of Canada raising interest rates. People know now that the cost of the Liberal deficits are going to be even greater than they were originally thought to be. So there's a mix of kind of anger about a specific decision, and then a lot of anxiety over the direction the Liberals are taking the country in, with big deficits that have to be paid back by my kids and future generations of Canadians who are going to have to pay back all this borrowing. So those are the two biggest things I've been hearing over the past couple of weeks. My position on NAFTA is I support free and open trade with the United States. I think the Liberals have mishandled the relationship. The fact that we're being included in this, and we seem to be, what may originally have been meant about specific grievances that President Trump had with Mexico, we've now, unfortunately, under this Liberal government, brought ourselves into the crosshairs as well on some of these issues. So that's my concern. When it comes to the Conservative members of Parliament, when we're in the United States, we will be speaking with one voice about the benefits of trade. I think it is very important that when we're dealing with our American counterparts that we present that united front, we make the case for trade with Canada. Back at home, I will be arguing vociferously that Conservatives would handle the trade file better and pointing out where the Liberals are missing opportunities. For example, on softwood lumber, not included specifically directly under NAFTA, but a trade issue that the Liberals really botched. There was an opportunity to get an extension on softwood lumber when President Obama was still in the White House. And when Justin Trudeau went down for his big state dinner, he didn't bring his Minister of Natural Resources with him. He brought his in-laws instead. So it speaks to the fact that they're not taking it seriously. They're going down and having a lot of meetings with a lot of officials, but what's also needed is a robust strategy to get American businesses to help make the case for trade with Canada. We need to be building alliances with all those employers in the US that hire people thanks to access to the Canadian markets or the ability to buy their inputs from Canada. Get them to put the pressure on American lawmakers, because I don't believe Donald Trump is going to give Canada a good deal out of the goodness of his heart, or if we go down and read Adam Smith to him. I think he understands jobs and he understands pressure from home, and the more American businesses we can help make the case that trade benefits both sides of the border, the more likely it is that we'll get a good deal for Canada, and we need to be doing more of that.
How do you plan to have that relationship with the Trump White House and this administration that is quite different than what we've seen in other American administrations?
It's quite different, and I'm confident when you look back at the relationship between the United States and Canada, regardless of who's in power federally or here or there, we always have to keep our eye on the prize, and that's the quality of life for Canadians and if I were in the U.S., for for Americans, trade benefits both our countries. There's no losers when it comes on the general level when it comes to free and open trade. So I think the way to deal with Donald Trump is to show how it's in his best interests. It's in the best interest of American employers and people who work for companies who have their job thanks to the ability to either sell a product or a service to Canadians, or because they're buying a product that makes their product a little bit cheaper or a little bit better. You make the case with them and you show how it's in their best interest. I think if you put your business hat on, and getting a good deal is often showing the person on the other side of the table how it's in their best interest to sign on, and that's what we need to be doing. That's the part we need to be focusing on.
Let's talk about conservative policies. And when you were elected leader, we saw some social conservatives really coalesce around you, and you've had a lot of support that way. Do you feel now an obligation to represent some of their thoughts and their positions as you go forward as leader?
I don't think that there was any one group of conservative that had a bigger impact than another. It was a very competitive race, and there are so many different kinds of conservatives. There's social conservatives, there's fiscal conservatives, there's there's foreign policy conservatives that are, join the party because they have a big passion for Canada's role in the world. There's libertarian conservatives, and what we saw in the last leadership race was that each candidate that was speaking to more or less of to one of those groups brought a whole lot of excitement and a whole lot of people in. But at the end of the day, my message was more about party unity and finding the common ground between all those different kinds of conservatives, and I was successful. And I think that the lesson from that is that we don't need to have this idea that a group of conservatives need to be catered to or have a louder voice than others, but that a leader can find that common ground and say, okay, what are the things that conservatives can agree on? And then after we decide that, what are the things that Canadians are looking for and that can support?
The MMIW inquiry, and a lot of people are saying it's just not working. What's your impression of how it's going, and would you be doing something different?
I think at this critical stage, I think it's important to see if it can be salvaged. If we can not lose the good work that's already been done. I think it's up to the Liberal minister to take some leadership here and get some cohesion back. I haven't been privy to the conversations behind closed doors, the dynamic that's going on at the commission. Obviously, there are stories coming out that indicate that there are some serious issues. If we are going to have a meaningful report, if a conclusion with some set of guidelines or recommendations to policymakers at different levels of government, it's got to be a collaborative effort from not just First Nations, but also elected representatives and people that will be implementing these policies. So at this stage, I don't want to, I wouldn't want to see a complete restart if there are aspects of it that we can make good come out of it. And I think that there are a lot of people that have shared their stories, a lot of people that have approached this in good faith, and I wouldn't want to see all of that have to be restarted.
How important is it for you to see a meaningful report come out of all of this?
It's very important. I have 12 reserves in my riding, and I've met with a lot of individuals who have had tragic circumstances happen to their families. I think we have to have a very open and honest conversation about, yes, what are the root causes? We know a lot of them are there are breakdowns in the home. There are people that are known to the victim often that commit many of these crimes. We know that there's a lot of people who leave the reserve and because they're facing real abuse and real threats home. So how do we address those issues? That's what I'm looking for in this report, to say, okay, look, we know in great detail, in many respects, we know what is happening to many of these individuals in the general sense. They are becoming victims of many different terrible circumstances, whether it's victims of assault or abuse, or if they have got in with different rings in large cities that exploit them. How do we stop that? How do we make it so that a home life on reserve or in a large city with a high proportion of First Nations population, how do we make it so that that house is safe for those women? How do we make it so that they have support if they are starting to be victimized, that there's somewhere they can go that can intervene and provide real support early on, so that it doesn't go down the road too far? That's what I'm looking for, is a sense from the First Nations community about what they'd like to see that would fit in with their framework of how they want their culture respected and how they want their their ability to have jurisdiction over aspects of life on reserve, have that respected, but with the practical quality of life improvement that can come with that.
FSA and Chief Bobby Cameron was critical of you after the leadership, saying that you hadn't done enough to engage with First Nations people. What's your response to that?
I reject the premise of that allegation. I've always had an open door policy with the reserves in my riding, and I've worked very diligently on some specific files. The water situation at the Capel Lakes was a huge issue affecting both the reserves that had their land flooded for many years, and also the community in the Fort Capel area that wanted to have the water levels at a certain level where they could use the lakes. And I worked very hard on that file for several years before it was ultimately concluded. Always been there to tackle those types of issues in a cooperative way. Perry Bellegarde is from my riding. We have a great relationship. We have an open dialogue. We text each other. I spoke to him on the phone just last week, and I'll be speaking to the AFN meetings happening here in Regina this week. So again, I think it's easy to make some allegations or throw something out there, but it doesn't stand up to scrutiny when you look at the relationship I've had here at home and the relationship I'm going to build in my new position.
Thanks for your time today, Andrew.
My pleasure.